Go.
Oh, hey guys. You may be wondering where Meadowlark is. Don't worry, I just taught him how to chainsaw. He's outside right now cutting down some trees. Don't worry, totally safe. He's wearing a helmet. Today, for our week 4 video, these are the things we're going to cover. But before we begin, I'd like to show you how I'm probably going to be Parent of the Year. Here are some of the things that Meadowlark's been learning over the course of our social distancing. Meadowlark's learned all the usual things. How to avoid matching, strum a guitar, herd chickens. He's even learned language. Finally, he's becoming quite the artist, learning how to obsessively draw cat butts. Parent of the Year. Now let's get started with our lecture. I was really impressed with all of our Alexa blueprints and the plans that we were doing, but the one thing that didn't work out was just getting them published. So think of that as kind of a draft. This next one, I've broken down how things are going to be assessed into different percentages. So these are your final assignments. 15% will be that final essay. 5% will be a final presentation on your new latest Alexa skill. And 5% will be on completing the voice flow skill and sharing it with us and letting us play around with it. I'd like to share with you another piece that I created that's been published in a peer-reviewed journal on a technology. It looks at technology in a little bit different way than we've been discussing, and I hope it just helps you think about technology in new ways. Now, next week, I'll share with you another work that I've been doing that's getting published as a chapter in a book. I worked on it with Maria Kuratova, a McDaniel student, and it's on how Bird Box and A Quiet Place represent technology fears of technology, screen culture, and audio surveillance. But first, I'd like to share with you something called the Daily Gas. So here I am on my projects page at paulmulhauser.org. You can locate it again by going to projects and then going to published, and you'll find a list of the work that I've published. I'm going to scroll down and I'm just going to click on the Daily Gas. So this was published in Women and Language, Alternative Texts, and it has to do with rhetoric, bodies, and Beano. Specifically, Beano as a technology for controlling one's flatulence or gas, and how this becomes very gendered. So you can see hegemonic masculinity at play here in how bodies are being self-disciplined into using Beano across gender. You'll find that the motivation came for this piece when I was in grade school, and I remember the teacher telling us a story about how a student would eat a lot of beans before going to class the next day, so that he could make the class, really funny and have a voice during class. But what this does, what this piece does, however, is it looks how bodies are being controlled again through Beano, which is a product which is supposed to limit flatulence. And if you go through the parts, you'll see I've got some theories and some terms here, and I encourage you just to look it up, just how rhetoric is more than just words, and as we've been talking about, it's digital technologies, but it's also can be considered technologies of ingestion, of how we persuade our bodies to be controlled and how we control ourselves. I think one of the big concepts in this piece is something called digestia, kind of a funny neologism that describes how ingestion and digestion of food and food technologies are communicative acts, and they actually can be pretty rhetorical in how we use them. There are a few other concepts that you may find interesting, like consubstantiation, substantiation, and transubstantiation. And these are just ways to examine how people use technology and how technology affects people. Well, rhetorical technology, or thinking about technologies in terms of rhetoric. So I'll scroll down just a little bit so you can see some of the ways that we explain the terms. So we theorize here in each of these sections. I encourage you to examine some of these concepts. You can certainly use them in the papers that you're writing if you'd like. But I think it's just kind of interesting to consider technology in new ways and read the world a little bit differently. And that's why I offer this to you. The big database that we created is in the shit section. Now, in this section, we have collected Beano commercials from the Beano website and commercials that ran, I think, in the early 2000s, 90s, and middle 2000s. I think that's when they came out. It was hard to find just because they were all on YouTube and locating, when they actually came out. But you'll find how food is presented across gender. Now, from these commercials, you'll find that the big deal has to do with women and men, and how women, with regards to Beano, are giving confessions. It's a very serious thing. It's never very funny about controlling their bodies. Men, on the other hand, get to be funny, like this Monks and a Judge commercial. And when women are also presented with Beano, and they're usually the ones that are in control of it, it's them controlling the men and their bodies, because men's bodies can be apparently out of control. So you can see how just this technology of Beano as a rhetorical technology is being gendered and emphasized for certain people to control their bodies in particular ways. And if you click on one of these, you'll open up and you'll get to watch the commercials and just see how they operate. And again, I encourage you to do so. The last part looks into the future. It's not so much in the future now, as these things exist. I'm not sure how popular they are, but it talks about how TweetP exists, and it is a sensor that connects to your phone that tells you when your child's diaper is wet, so he's peed. And then there's also Shreddies, which is fart filtering underwear. And you can see how it's advertised, and go to the website if you'd like to see how, again, bodies are being controlled, how flatulence is being controlled, and I think still from the website across gendered lines.